Good evening, everyone, and it's nice to see some very familiar faces here in person and online, and some new faces. I haven't seen some few of you in a long time, so it's nice to see you all again. Thank you for being here. Today is June 19th, and it's recognized in the United States as Juneteenth. It's also called Emancipation Day or Freedom Day. And this is the 160th anniversary of the end of enslavement in the United States. Now, the interesting thing about it is everyone assumed that Juneteenth meant slavery ended throughout the entire United States. But in 1863, President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation to free the enslaved in the Confederate States. And it wasn't until much later that in 1865, in the southern part of the Confederacy in Galveston, Texas, federal troops made their way to announce to the enslaved that they were free. 2 years. Also, June 19th is the 61st anniversary of the day the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed in the Senate. The act prohibited discrimination based on race, color, religion, natural origins. And it allowed people to be employed, to vote, and can you imagine, to use public facilities, 61 years. As was mentioned earlier, I sit on the board of directors for the Zen Peacemakers, and we've had bearing witness retreats to different parts of the world. Usually everyone knows about the one in Auschwitz, which is about 30 years, but we did in April 4 years of bearing witness to racism in Selma and Montgomery. And it's very enlightening because it takes a period of time to form relationships with people. We were 28 people, 3 of us were staff, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot that made me think about, well, racism hasn't gone away. It hasn't gone away. Most recently, this past retreat, we heard from the mayor of Selma that said the city of Selma is like a blue island in a Red Sea. And the reason why is because the funding from the federal government does not come to Selma at all. It goes to other parts of Alabama, but not to Selma. And the reason why is that's where the civil rights movement started. And it was well coordinated, this movement. People were told, wear your Sunday best and bring your toothbrush. And you had people who were old, you had school children, you had pregnant women, number of people who decided to go and march for civil rights. But the truth is, if you were to go to Selma right now, it's decimated. They've received no funding from the last, I think it was the hurricane or tornado that hit them. A lot of the stores and buildings are gone. The only claim to fame is the bridge. You have to go outside of Selma to get food. There's nothing in the city you can get. There are few businesses, but that's it. So 28 people descended on the town of Selma this most recently, and the hotel we were staying in, we were told that we were going to get breakfast and dinner. We found out they weren't serving breakfast and dinner. So we went to a local coffee shop. And the woman who was the hostess was kind of very gracious enough to welcome us and quite overwhelmed the first day when you have 28 people descend upon you and you have vegan and non-vegan. And then subsequently she decided and planned that we would have in the 2 days that we were there, a room where we could sit and have a meal and talk to people and get to know them. And then on Sunday, she announced, she says, you know, I go to church on Sundays. Nothing is open in Selma on Sundays. But she says, I'll make breakfast for you before you go. Now, the interesting thing is that she's getting ready to leave to go to church, and she says, I'm getting ready to go to church, and she holds up a cup. She says, you all know what you owe. Put the money in the cup, put it on the shelf, turn out the light, close the door. You are, right? Those of us know that something like that would never fly in any part of the world. But the focus of the retreat, like all these retreats, is to look at your inner, or I should say, our inner white supremacists. We all have them. We live in a racist and a supremacist society. And I think sometimes it's very easy to look away and say, well, that's not me. But that supremacist is internalized in all of us. I'm quite familiar in getting to know my own. My supremacist is the one I'm always waiting to be hit upside the head. And the voice that says, who told you to do that? That's what you get. What do you do with that voice? Well, I think that's what we're here for. Like, I like to think that's what we're here for. That Juneteenth is not so much about the enslaved being free, but all of us being free. Because we're all enslaved. We're all enslaved. You have a man of color giving you a talk. That white supremacist has got to be saying something about him talking up here. But I'll leave that to you to discern what that's all about. But it's important for us in our practice to be aware of that voice and how do we work with it. And I do believe that's how the Bodhisattva vows come into place. How do we serve? All sentient beings, including the white supremacists. How do we transform the inner white supremacist? Not the other white supremacists, the inner white supremacists. And how do we enter into those opportunities that allow us to serve? That's why we practice. That's what we do. And it's important for us to be mindful of that. How do we support each other? Right? But I think it's important on this Juneteenth to know the white supremacists in all of us. And don't turn away. An interesting note is that the current administration sent armed forces to California to deal with the protest against the immigrants. In 1965, President Johnson used the armed forces to protect those who were in the Civil Rights March. So unfortunately, racism is something that will always be part of our lives. It's just taken on a different form. So I like to believe that this day, Juneteenth, is an opportunity for all of us to look at ourselves and see and use that part of us that we don't want to look at, that white supremacist, and how can we serve.
Good evening, everyone. I sincerely appreciated the opportunity to be invited for this Tokuhafkyo dissemination tour in North America, in New York. My name is Gihan Unno. Yes. Please call me Unno. Hi. A Soto Zen Tokuhafkyo teacher and the Abbot of Eisho-ji Temple in Kitakami City, Iwate Prefecture, Japan. Do you know Iwate Prefecture? Maybe you don't know. Northern Japan. It is very snowy place. Iwate has many ski area. Yeah. And so I was professional skier before become Buddhist priest. I have taken a flight across the Pacific. I arrived at San Diego before a week, and after San Diego, 4 days in Los Angeles. And yesterday I came to New York, and in this morning I am in Zen Mountain Monastery in New York. Yeah, and here now. And I'm happy today because I had 3 times zazen today. In this morning, 2 times in Mountain Monastery, and this time here, and 3rd time zazen. I'm grateful today. Looking back, it must have been over 20 years ago, before I became a Soto Zen priest. I had the experience of staying in New York for a week. I still remember how I used to skate through Central Park, maybe every day, on inline skate. Do you know inline skate? Yeah. During that time, because I was a professional skier, I visited the New York City for training, for ski training, and then skating and skating and skating 20 years ago. However, this is my first time coming to the US for Soto Zen dissemination. As I admit, I am feeling a tiny bit nervous, very nervous. Furthermore, as my English is not very strong, so I ask for your understanding, as I will be relying on my script while delivering this Dharma talk. Still, it is my hope to share with you the words of the head priest of Soto Zen School in Japan, Minamisawa Donin, Minamisawa Donin Zenji of Daihonzan Eiheiji Temple, and convey how we can engage with practice of zazen and how we should live in this chaotic world. First, I would like to read these words. Please follow along with the leaflet in your hands as you listen to his message. A message from the head priest of Soto Shu in 2025. The various problems facing the world today are complex and layered. It is not an exaggeration to say that the crisis threatening basic human rights, such as the right to live in peace and the dignity of life, is only growing. as followers of Shakyamuni Buddha and two founders of Soto Zen Buddhism, we must know the sure path to follow. Shakyamuni Buddha realized the law of dependent origination and, through his wisdom, observed everything correctly. He demonstrated with his own life that harmony with others is achieved through compassion. This way of life, free from self-interest and egoism, is what we should follow. Dogen Zenji thought, learn the backward step that turns the light and shines it inwards. This means to pause in our steps, adjust our breath, step back 2 or 3 paces, and humbly reflect on our actions in the light of the Buddhist path. Keizan Zenji thought, we must always generate thoughts of harmony and reconciliation. The disturbance of harmony is, throughout all ages, caused by human self-interest and desire, namely greed. It is this greed that is the source of suffering and the root of conflict. Since this world is impermanent and selfless, the sun and the moon shine without personal attachment, illuminating everything. We too wish to engage with all things and all circumstances with the utmost sincerity. The act of gassho is to align oneself with the Buddha. By engaging in zazen, where we can awaken to the Buddha within ourselves. Let us pray and wish for a peaceful life for all people across the world, ensuring that no one is left behind. Let us continue to practice the way of the Bodhisattva together. Gassho. Homage to the Buddha Shakyamuni. Homage to Zen Master Dogen, Great Master Joyo, eminent ancestor. Homage to Zen Master Keizan, Great Master Josai, great ancestor. 1st April 2025, Donin Minamisawa, head priest of Soto Shu. Thank you. This is the words of the Kancho head priest, Soto Zen School, Minamisawa Donin. As I read them over, the various problems facing the world today are complex and layered. I see how we are living in a very difficult time, in a critical situation. This is true for both the United States and Japan. We all globally share the awareness about the challenging situations we face today. Yet, even in such circumstances, the Buddha showed us how to live peacefully. As stated in the 3rd paragraph, he demonstrated with his own life that harmony with others is achieved through compassion. With a compassionate heart, it would be possible for us to actualize the harmony and unity with others. Compassion means truly thinking of aite. Do you know aite? This is Japanese. Aite is the ones who are with you is aite. The ones who are with you, bringing them joy and alleviating their sufferings. it is not about our own joy, but about giving joy to the ones who are with you. It is not about our own suffering, but about relieving the suffering of the one who are there with you. In doing so, we find such actions our own joys and our own suffering being alleviated. Dogen Zenji teaches us this concept with the phrase, we should learn the practice of turning the light around and shining it back. Through zazen, he shows us how to look inward and, more importantly, how to extend our thoughts to others, not just ourselves. The practice of zazen that we engage in is called shikantaza. Do you know shikantaza? Yes. We will always do shikantaza. Just sitting. Shikantaza is just sitting. However, it is not merely about sitting. It is important to turn the light around and shine it back on ourselves, as highlighted in the Fukan Zazen. Fukan Zazen wrote by Dogen Zenji. It is not merely about doing, but it is a time of reflecting on ourselves. Think about it. Do you have quiet moments in your daily life to reflect on yourself? Not just now. Reflect on yourself, but always? Is there time when you can sit still and simply look at yourself without doing anything else? If you are told, take 5 minutes and do nothing. Take 5 minutes and do nothing. What would you do? What would you do? Most likely, many of us would look at our smartphones, turn on TV, listening to the radio, or read books, and so on. Yes, when we have a free time, we often find ourselves doing something. In this context, Dogen Zenji teaches us that the time we truly sit in stillness and do nothing is itself is zazen. Do nothing. In the practice of zazen, doing nothing, the head priest, Reverend Minamisawa, once shared a profound teaching with me. Minamisawa Zenji said, zazen nurtures the compassionate heart and mind to care for others and help one another. Zazen nurtures the compassionate heart and mind to care for others and help one another. When I heard it, practice of shikantaza is not just sitting in the Soto Zen tradition, but cultivating the compassionate heart and mind. I felt deeply grateful. The understanding of the cultivation of a heart and mind that extend our thoughts to others, seek others' happiness, and wish to alleviate their suffering through zazen. made me realize the wonderful virtues of the practice. Since then, I have been able to live my life with an even greater sense of closeness to zazen. Also, Keizen Zenji teaches us that even if difficult times, we must always generate thoughts of harmony and reconciliation. When people encounter challenging situations, they often close their hearts. When people are in despair, they can become paralyzed and unable to take action. However, even in such times, Keizen Zenji encourages us to help each other and reach out to one another, to continue living together. This teaching, so characteristic of the kind-hearted Keizen Zenji, emphasizes caring for others and striving for harmony with others. It is with such spirit that conflict and strife should vanish from the world, eliminating causes of a war. When I reflect on the teaching of Wango Waboku, Wango Waboku was said from Keizen Zenji, harmony and reconciliation. Wango Waboku is harmony and reconciliation. There is sutra from the Buddha's teachings that comes to mind. It is none other than the Lotus Sutra. Lotus Sutra. Specifically, the birth of the lifespan of the Tathagata chapter of the Lotus Sutra, which we chant regularly. In this sutra, there is an expression that says, Nyuwa Stujiksha. Nyuwa Stujiksha. It means a soft and warm person. Soft and warm person. I really love this phrase, especially the word Nyuwa. Please say Nyuwa. Yes. Again, Nyuwa. Again, great. Which conveys a sense of softness and mutual harmony. The phrase Nyuwa itself carries very soft and gentle nuance. Nyuwa, very soft. In Japanese, Nyuwa, very soft. In English, Nyuwa. Say Nyuwa. Very soft and gentle. Even if say Nyuwa, it still sounds soft and gentle. The Buddha has been consistently teaching the importance of thinking of others with us and interacting with them gently from over 2,500 years ago. Now, the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II in Japan. It's been 80 years since the end war ended. Including myself, we were born and raised without knowing what it means to live through a war. Since we have no direct experience of war, we grew up without knowing what the consequences of war would look like. However, things are different now. In recent years, now, the situation has dramatically changed globally between Ukraine and Russia, Israel and Palestine. When war breaks out, the whole world now experiences the devastating impacts and consequences. The aftermath of such tragedies is filled with scenes that make us want to cover our eyes. But when I think about it, Japan also suffered from the Second World War. In Japan, 80 years have passed since the war. Since he experiences of the tragedy and since becoming the sole country subjected to atomic bombing. About 80 years ago, I had opportunity to visit Nagasaki with fellow monks as someone with absolutely no experience of war. Having never been to either Hiroshima or Nagasaki before. Do you have been Nagasaki or Hiroshima? Yes? Almost no, yes. I was looking forward to visiting the city of Nagasaki, where the influence of the long history of trade with Europe remained. However, the more I learned about the city, the more closely I started to notice the influence of the aftermath of the atomic bombs as a focal point. Our group chose to visit Nagasaki Peace Park, because we wanted to learn about the war. As we walked through the city, I noticed something significant. Unlike Hiroshima, which has the iconic atomic bomb dome, Nagasaki does not have a building that directly symbolizes the tragedy of the atomic bombing. However, remnants of the atomic bomb's impact can still be found throughout the town. The remnants of a bell tower, scorched and toppled, a torii gate at a shrine, split in two, with only one column still standing, like F. When we arrived at the Peace Park, our attention was immediately drawn to the symbol of Nagasaki, the Peace Memorial Statue. Do you know Peace Memorial Statue? No? That statue, with its right hand raised high, left hand extended outward, and right legs like zazen, half lotus position, like this. Sorry? That style. And then that statue do zazen. Statue did zazen in Nagasaki. The statue is positioned in such a way that it looks down on the city of Nagasaki. It was created with the hope that there would never again be war, and the world would stay peaceful in the coming era. We often hear an expression, Nagasaki of prayer. Nagasaki of prayer. I feel that this peace memorial statue strongly expresses this feeling. Afterward, we visited the Atomic Bomb Museum, located next to the Peace Park. Our purpose was to hear the stories from people who had actually experienced the bombing. About 20 monks entered the lecture room when an elderly woman in a wheelchair was waiting for us. Her name was Etsuko Nagano. Etsuko Nagano. At that time, she was 88 years old. Etsuko, with a sense of humor, she said, I have shared my experience of the atomic bomb many times, but this is the first time I am speaking to monks. I'm sorry, but I feel like I am preaching to the Buddhas. Her words lightened the mood and made us all feel at ease. Then she started to share the story of her atomic bomb experience. Etsuko started off right away, recalling the day, August 9, 1945. She was 16 years old at the time, as the country was at war. She had been assigned to work in a factory located about 3 kilometers from the epicenter on a hilltop. At 11:02 a.m. on August 9, there was a sudden bright flash of light all around her. Etsuko and her colleagues realized it was a bomb and immediately took cover inside the building. Then, the blast swept through, which was unlike anything they had ever experienced before. All the windows shattered, and the building was severely damaged. However, since the factory was far enough from the epicenter, they were safe. From the factory on the hilltop, they looked down at the city and saw their town and neighborhoods destroyed. Nonetheless, Etsuko headed over toward the Nagasaki station area to search her family. The street in front of the station was blocked with rubble from collapsed buildings. So they walked around to the back of the station. While walking, she heard something call out, "Etsuko! Etsuko!" It was her father. "You are alive?" he exclaimed, and they embraced, grateful for the miracle of finding each other. That's the miracle. On their way home, they saw that the bodies of those who had died from the bomb were all scattered on streets. Large head, small heads, arms and legs, some skeletons, some blackened corpses were all scattered around everywhere. Human, dogs, cats, horses, cows, every kind of living creature was scorched and lying in the streets. When they arrived at their home, it was nothing but a burned wasteland. The house was completely gone. As Etsuko was wondering where her family was, a neighbor ran up to her and said, "Etsuko, you are alive? Everyone is here. Come this way," and led her to a bomb shelter. Etsuko felt relieved, but was soon faced with the painful sight of her brother Seiji, severely bound, lying there suffering. Her father, trying to comfort Seiji, father said, "Seiji, it's okay. Leave it to me." But when he tried to lift Seiji, the skin of his son peeled off, sticking to his father's hands. Even so, they tried to take Seiji to hospital. They scavenged for galvanized metal sheets from the rubble to make a stretcher and carried him. The hospital was full of people, and no matter how long they waited, they never reached the front of the line. Seiji received no medical treatment and passed away 3 days after the bombing inside the shelter as his family watched over him. They had no crematorium, and the family had no choice but to cremate the body themselves. They had to set a fire to Seiji's body, and Etsuko questioned whether they could do such a thing, but they had no choice. They gathered earth from around them and lit the fire. They placed Seiji's remains in a container they had found in the rubble. Etsuko kept the ashes in her arms every night as she slept. She was holding her brother, Seiji, as if he were alive, who had been praying full of life just a few days before. Soon after, on August 15th, the war fighting ended. For Etsuko, the end of the war did not come with a feeling of relief or joy. It was an incredibly sad end, and she wished that Japan had surrendered earlier, before the atomic bomb was dropped. However, it was the entire nation that fought in this war. The slogan shared among the nation was, "We will not show our need until we win." And no one could have ever dared to say that it would be better to lose. After the war ended, Etsuko and her family traveled for 25 miles on foot to a town called Obama, where they relied on their relatives. It took them several days to get there, but when they arrived in Obama, Etsuko's younger sister, Kuniko, became sick. She developed radiation sickness as a result of the bombing. Her hair began to fall out, her gums kept bleeding, and spots appeared on her body. A month after the bombing, Kuniko passed away, following her brother. Etsuko had lost her beloved younger siblings. While she had survived at the age of 16, her younger brother and sister had died. It was an incredibly sad and painful experience. But there was an even deeper sorrow in their deaths. In fact, these two younger siblings had been evacuated to Kagoshima Prefecture, far away from Nagasaki. For months during the war, they had been living in the countryside of Kagoshima, gradually getting accustomed to their new life there. In fact, it was Etsuko who had felt lonely, not her younger siblings. One day, during a holiday, Etsuko went to visit her younger brother and sister in Kagoshima Prefecture. Her mother had told Etsuko not to bring them back to Nagasaki. With its abundant nature and food, the life in the countryside of Kagoshima Prefecture allowed her younger siblings live happily and in good health. Etsuko spent a wonderful day with her brother and sister. Perhaps because she envied their joy or felt lonely, their resistance, she forced her siblings to board a train on her way back and brought them back to Nagasaki. Shortly after, the atomic bomb was dropped on the city of Nagasaki. After the death of her sister, Etsuko's mother stopped talking to her. They didn't argue, but they didn't talk to each other to get close either. No communication between them. It wasn't about who was at fault. Everyone understood that. If anyone was to blame, it was the war. But deep down in their hearts, both Etsuko and her mother must have regretted deeply that Etsuko and brought the children back to Nagasaki. Etsuko was overwhelmed with regret. Both of them tried to cope with their despair by keeping their mouths closed in silence. After some time, Etsuko's mother also began showing signs of radiation sickness, like her sister Kuniko. Her skin began to deteriorate. Her hair fell out, and blood started to flow out of her body. As her mother's life was drawing to an end, it was her mother who spoke first. Mother said, "Etsuko, I'm sorry for being silent since Kuniko passed away. I'm sorry I couldn't care for you and love you more." Etsuko returned, "No, I'm sorry for bringing them back. I killed my brother and sister. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." She spoke through her tears. All the memories they had been suppressing inside that neither Etsuko nor her mother could express came to the surface. Etsuko felt that if she hadn't brought her siblings back, they would have survived. She had lived with this heavy emotional burden, feeling as if she were being crushed by this burden. But as her mother said the words, "I'm sorry," Etsuko felt in that moment that she had been forgiven. Her mother shared the same feelings. She said, "No, Etsuko, you didn't do anything wrong. I am the one to blame. After Kuniko died, I couldn't talk to you. I wanted to tell you right away that it wasn't your fault at all. But I couldn't say it. I closed my mouth and made you suffer. I should have spoken to you sooner. I'm sorry, Etsuko." Afterward, the two of them talked all night long. They shared memories of praying with all three siblings together, enjoy outing with their parents, and how talking gently and softly with each other could bring so much joy and happiness. In that moment, all the lingering misunderstandings were resolved, and Etsuko and her mother returned to the relationship they had before. Sometime later, her mother passed away. Etsuko, who had finally felt deeply connected with her mother, found it difficult to keep living her life. She confided to a friend that she wanted to die. Her friend responded, "Etsuko, what are you talking about? Who is going to bury the three in a grave and pray for them? Isn't that why you are still alive?" That moment became a turning point. From then on, her purpose in life became to work hard, save money, and build a grave for her three loved ones. However, about 3 years after the end of the war, her father, who had been healthy until then, also passed away from radiation sickness caused by the atomic bomb. She was now completely alone. Wrapped in an overwhelming sadness and a sense of loneliness, she couldn't escape. She kept in mind her friend's words and continued to live on with determination. Meanwhile, she kept thinking of her lost family and taking each day at a time. Several years later, she finally had enough saved to build the graves for all 4 family members. When she visited the temple for the commemoration, she met a man who had also lost his entire family to the atomic bomb just like her. As they shared their grief and suffering, they became important to each other and eventually married. Together, they overcame their sadness, with their departed loved ones always in their thoughts and still wishing for the happiness on their new family. The kind and gentle words her mother, newer words, had spoken before her happiness or before her passing became Etsuko light of hope and guide in life. She spent her life with deep trust that speaking with kindness and softness, that is newer words, was the way for people to realize harmony with one another. She continued to live her life with her new family, always speaking gentle and soft words, walking her life blessed with her children and grandchildren. However, Etsuko also said that the pain, sadness, and loneliness of being the lonely one left behind was something she would never forget in the rest of her life. Even so, in the words she spoke, there was not the slightest trace of anger or hatred. She spoke with calmness in soft and gentle words. Etsuko was saved the newer words of her mother after days of painful silence between them. From that moment, Etsuko lived her life bearing how she can think of the other in front of us. She has always kept her deceased family, the husband who helped her overcome her sorrow, the new family she had been blessed with, and the people who would listen to this story in her thoughts. It is because she always kept them in her thoughts that gentle words came out naturally from her. Rather than harboring hatred, she spoke soft words with a heart of compassion, because she remembered her mother's last gentle words. Kindness and softness overflew in Etsuko words. I realized that she was Newer Sujiksha from Lotus Sutra. She is Newer Sujiksha. When she's story ended and we were about to leave the venue, Etsuko saw of us. I knelt down, grabbed Etsuko's hand tightly and said, "Thank you so much. Your gentle words were so wonderful. I truly thank you." Etsuko responded, "No, thank you for listening so attentively to the end." Her hands, though wrinkled and aged, but were incredibly soft and warm, radiating the warmth of her kind heart. Now, we may not be able to move nations or stop wars, but if each of us holds a heart of compassion for each other and never forgets to use words of gentle heart, we can certainly eliminate conflicts between people. If the leaders of a country had a heart of compassion and spoke with words of newer, gentle, there would be no war. As long as we continue to engage deeply in the practice of zazen and cultivate the heart of compassion, perhaps the heart of compassion will also blossom in someone's heart, just like Etsuko. Let us not forget the compassionate heart and gentle words. Let us not forget newer words. This is how we hope for a peaceful world without conflict. Let us continue to live each day at a time with a continuous practice of zazen, wishing for this peaceful world. This is the teaching of the Buddha. This is the world that Dogen Zenji and Keizan Zenji both wished for. Etsuko's dedicated life is certainly teaching all of this to us. Thank you for hearing my Dharma talk. Thank you for listening so attentively to the end. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone online or in the room here who would like to ask a question of our speaker, Uno Sensei? And don't feel compelled, but if the spirit moves, and Echo, you can just let us know if you have anyone raising their hand online.
Hi, I'm Kakuo. Thank you so much for your beautiful Dharma talk. It was so moving. I was very, very touched. Yeah, it really helps me to see the suffering in Japan after the war. I was wondering if you can talk a little bit more about the Buddha's teaching and how Buddhist or Soto Zen ideas about compassion and suffering connect to this story of so much suffering.
お釈迦様の悟りは、まず第一が、我と第一右上同時浄土です。
So in the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha, the first thing that he exclaimed after attaining enlightenment out of the Bodhi tree was that I, the great earth, and all beings attain to the way at the same time.
我と第一右上道場は、人も地球上の生きとし生けるものも植物もみんな平等だっていう意味です。
So in the beginning of that, when he says, I, the great earth, and all types of beings, when he said this, it means that all of those things, even plants, are all level.
そう思った時にしてたのが座禅です。
And so the knowing of that is what we call zazen.
だから返すと、座禅をしてたらそういう気持ちになるはずだっていうことです。
So if we are truly doing zazen, then our feeling of our heart will become that level or that oneness of all of those things.
お釈迦様は自分の命とアリの命が一緒だって思ってました。
So the Buddha, he must have thought that his own life and the life of an ant were the same.
これ私たち難しいですよ、そう思うのは。
This is very difficult for us to think this way.
だから座禅を続けなきゃいけない。
So we must continue to sit zazen.
もしアリと自分が同じだと思えるようになったら、それが世界中の人がそう思えたら、争いはなくなります。
If we could all receive that heart that knows that the life of an ant and our life are inseparable, then all of the conflict of the world would disappear.
だけど、私たちは蚊が来ると叩きます。
But actually, if a mosquito comes and lands on our arm, we will swat it.
だからそう簡単ではない。
So it's not such an easy thing.
だから続けなきゃいけない。
So this is why we have to continue our practice.
です。
Thank you.
And we do have a question online.
Oh, go ahead, please. This will be our, maybe our last question.
All right, this is Chogaku. Let me add you, please. And Chogaku, I'll have to allow you to unmute, which you should be able to do now. All right, let me try this.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Uno Roshi, deep gratitude. My sense of your message tonight, one of the deep, profound messages in the story, seems to me that Etsuko's mother, as she was dying, somehow naturally came to the same understanding as Dogen, that it was necessary to, in her last days, turn the light inward, take a backward step, and that allowed her to apologize and to reconcile with her daughter. Would you agree?
そのいつこのお母さんが、
はい
道元禅師と同じように、渋沢に対抗することに気がついたことだと思います。
はい、そうですね。
その通りですか？
その通りですね。
Yes.
多分一歩歩む一歩引くには時間がかかるので、沈黙の時間はお互いが考える時間であったと思います。
So, because it's always a matter of taking one step back and then one step forward, it must have taken some time, and both Etsuko and her mother needed that time to be able to find their way forward.
その沈黙の時間は苦しかったけれども、その時間があったから前に進めたので、私たちも何か苦しい時があった時に何とか前に進むのも大事ですけど、止まったり退いたりするっていうことがもしかしたら苦しみを解決する方法かもしれないということをこのお二人が教えてくれてます。
So I think that this story teaches us that when we're having a very difficult time, that of course we want to move forward and to be able to solve the problem that's before us. But actually, oftentimes what we need is to stop and to have this kind of interim period where a different kind of reflection and just the straightforwardness of the difficulty itself might bring us to a solution.
ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much for
Thank you very
answering our
much.
questions.